Hello, this is Mike with Miller Marine Products, and today I want to shoot a little DIY video, do it yourself, on how to install my rail system. So what I've done is I've taken and made a mock-up that would simulate the inside of your boat. So this piece is made from 2x6 square tubing. It's got an 1/8 of an inch thick wall on it. And the reason I use tubing is I wanted to show that if you could not get to the back to bolt this rail up solid, that you could use what is called a rivet nut. Now, I cheated a little bit, and when I did this on my CNC machine, and I went ahead and drilled this first hole and went ahead and put in this first thread rivet just to speed things up a little bit. So what I would do at this point is I would take my rail and I would mock this up. I would figure out where I want my rail, and then I would mark that first hole, and I would drill and put that first rivet nut in. Or if you're just drilling the rail, I would just drill that, put a nut on the backside if you could get to it. Now, one of the things to remember before you start drilling holes in the side of your boat, you need to know whether or not you've got electrical wires, fuel lines, hydraulic lines inside behind that. So it's very important that you don't just drill into those things. If you can get to the back side, a good way to do it is to take a small block of plywood and just stick up in there, so when you drill, you just drill into that plywood, especially if you got wires behind there. Now, if you can't get to that and you don't know what's behind there, a good idea would be to contact the manufacturer that made your boat and ask them what you could expect to be back there. So I've got some little tricks that I use for doing that, for drilling and then not going all the way in. Aluminum's really bad for self-feeding the bit, so meaning that when you start drilling, it wants to suck the bit through all at once. And if you have wiring back there, you don't want to do that. So what I would do at this point, so I have my first hole here. Now I would come up here and I'd install this screw that I just installed the rivet nut for. Okay, whoop. And go ahead and tighten that up a little bit. There we go. You can still move it around. But so what I want to do is hold this roughly up where it goes, and I want to get a measurement for how far that is. And let's see, it looks like we measure about 9/16 of an inch. So what I do is come over here and measure 9/16 of an inch. If you're working on the transom of your boat and you can't quite get a clamp to hold it, you can always use some blue tape. So what I would do is I'd take a length of blue tape like that, and I would attach it really good to the rail. Okay, and then when I got it measured just where I wanted it, about right there, I would pull that tape tight up top here and get that tape stuck down. Okay, and then go ahead and stick it down there as well. That would give me my distance. Now, one of the things I like to use, at this point you could use a Sharpie to mark that spot. I like transfer punches. You can pick these transfer punches up. Here's a whole set of them. I think I paid about $10 online or Harbor Freight. I'm not sure where I bought these. But basically what they are is they're a bunch of different sizes. And right dead set in the center, you've got a little center punch. So on this one, I would put that up here. This is the 1/4 inch one. I would do that. I would tap it. Got my spot there. Then at that point, I'd go ahead and remove this tape for now. And take this whole rail back off so it's not in my way. Okay. Then I would drill that. Now, one of the things I do to make sure that I'm not going to self-feed the drill and drill maybe into some wiring is I'll get a block of wood, and I'll set it up to where you can see that that's only going to allow it to come through about 1/8 of an inch. So I'm not going to worry about self-feeding that whole drill in there. There, see it pop through? The other thing that does is when the drill comes through, it hits this block of wood and it doesn't scratch up your paint. So now we got a hole started in there. This particular rivet nut calls for a 25/64 drill bit. Okay, and I like to use what are called stub length drills. You can buy these. Your standard drill index that you get comes with this one. This is a jobber length drill. These are both the same diameter. They're both 25/64, but you can see the difference. And the reason I like the short ones is I'm not drilling a hole that deep, for one, but I can do the same thing I did a minute ago, and I've drilled a hole in my block this direction, so I'm not going to feed way in there. So I'm going to take my drill bit and I'm going to stick it through where I figure I'm just past that 1/8 of an inch. And then I don't have to worry about shoving that through and hitting some wiring or something. So at that point, okay, I've tightened it down. I'm up tight against there, and that's going to be my stop again. So here we go. Okay, we're through. Just like that, it stopped it. At that point, it didn't self-feed. I've got my hole. So now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get one of my thread rivets, and I'm going to put that in the hole and test fit it. It fits, okay? A thread rivet gun, this one is by Marson. There's a lot of different types. There's some that's got 2 big handles. Those have a little better leverage when you get up to these larger sizes. But this is a mandrel, and it goes through there. And then you thread your thread rivet on like this. Okay, and then we back this up. You want your thread rivet down tight against here before you start with your handles open. And what you're going to do is put that in there like that. And you're just going to squeeze this down till it's tight. Then this backs out of there. And we have a thread rivet installed, okay? So now I can put both ends of my rail on, and then I can mark my other 2 holes and drill those. I'm going to do that now. Now I'm set. So now I just got to mark those other 2 holes. So what I'll do is I'll take my transfer punch, and this is a little harder to mark because it's just set here, and I'm just kind of, it's not like a solid boat. So I'm going to pop each one of those holes real good. Okay. And then I'm going to take it back off. Okay. Now I can see my 2 holes that have been marked. I'm going to go ahead and take another punch. This is a spring-loaded one, but I want to deepen that just a little bit, make sure my drill starts good in that. And so now I'm going to change drill bits because I like to get a nice small one in there. If you're off a little bit with a small drill bit, it's a lot less than if you're off a little bit on a big drill bit. So what I want to do is I want to get this started to start with where I can see it really easy. I don't want to go through it, I just want to get it started. Because I want to use my block of wood. Okay. Now I'm going to use my block of wood again. And I can see that I've got to reset my drill bit because see how far that went through there? So I need to push my drill bit back in here a little further. There we go. I'd say that's about right. Now, I'm going to drill these 2 holes. Okay. Felt that one pop through. Here I go here. Felt that one pop through. So now I'm going to take those off. Change my drill bit out to my larger drill bit. Okay. Okay, I'm starting it like that because I want to make sure that I'm in the center of that hole. Now, I got to adjust my drill a little bit because I'm a little too far through or into the chuck, and I need a little bit more drill bit. There we go. So that's about right. Now I'm going to come back here, get that back in that hole. Okay, there's one hole. Here's the other one. Okay, there's a second hole. Now we're done with the drill and the block, and we just got to put in 2 more fasteners on this, and we'll have this rail installed. Again, this needs to thread through far enough. You want to thread that part through. Screw on your thread rivet so that it's past the end here. And I usually kind of tighten them down just a little bit by hand. Then I'm going to stick that in there. And I'm going to squeeze the handles as good as I can. There's one installed. Okay. Now, thread rivet guns can be purchased. I think even Harbor Freight sells thread rivet guns, but you can find them online. The one I have here is a Marson, and I don't think I got through that hole all the way. Maybe there it goes. Okay, so that it's important that you use the proper size drill bit, and the fastener company will tell you what size that drill bit needs to be, and you don't want to deviate from that. Like I said, this particular one calls for 25/64. Now, one of the things you'll notice on my rails come relieved on the back side just for this purpose, just so that you can put a rivet nut on, and it's not going to teeter on that. It's going to fit inside that spot. Okay, let's get some bolts in both ends. And I got a couple more here. Okay, so there we go. We have successfully installed a Miller Marine rail using rivet nuts. So as you can see, this is not a real high-tech operation. It's not hard to get good results doing this. I don't recommend that you just use a self-tapping bolt unless you've got material that's at least 1/4 of an inch thick. The industry standard is 1 diameter thickness for threads. And so this is a really solid makeup. If you look at the end of this, on this side over here, I'll turn this, I don't know if we can see it very well or not, but you can see how they've mushroomed here where they've tightened up, and you've got all of this thread contact rather than just having this little thin piece where you would have 1 or 2 threads in it. Now you've got this really nice fastener, and in order for that to fail, it's got to suck that whole thing right through the side. That's not going to happen. So that kind of concludes this first video showing how to install a rail, one of my rails, using rivet nuts. So what I'll do is in the comment section below the video is I'll put in some links where you can pick this stuff up. This is just a rivet gun. They make different styles of them, a thread rivet gun. And it's got all these different mandrels here for different size thread rivets. I use these all over in my boat. I really like them much better than just putting a sheet metal screw in the side. Sheet metal screws are coarse. You only get about a half a thread, 3/4 of a thread at the most in something. And if it's something that you loosen and tighten a few times, they'll get wallered out and come loose. One thing I would suggest is that I didn't do on here, but I would install those screws. I would put some anti-seize, marine type anti-seize on all of those threads. So if you have to take it apart later, you'll be able to get it back apart. So for now, I think that concludes this first video on installing the rail system.